to Proverbs chapter 17. We're reading a proverb each day. So today we're looking at chapter 17. And chapter 17 had several passages that I thought especially were interesting. It starts off verse 1, better to dry morsel with quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. I like verse 5. So this is interesting. Those who mock the poor insult their maker, and those who are glad at calamity will not go unpunished. Um, then it also says, I really like what it says here in verse 9. One who forgives an affront fosters friendship, but one who dwells on disputes will alienate a friend. Then it says, verse 13 said, evil not depart from the house of the one who returns evil for good. The beginning of strife is like letting out of water. So stop before the quarrel breaks out. Verse 19, one who loves transgression loves strife. I really think there's some interesting things here. One of the common themes we keep coming to in Proverbs is this notion of just watching what we say and how we speak. But I really, really deeply appreciate verse 13 and verse 9. One who forgives an affront fosters friendship, but one who dwells on disputes will alienate a friend. Man, that's hard, isn't it, y'all? It's so hard to let things go, particularly when you've been hurt or you've been wounded, or particularly it's on purpose. It's so hard sometimes to let things go. But then, verse 14, the beginning of strife is like the letting out of water. So stop it before a quarrel breaks out. I was talking about this Sunday in my sermon, how so often we react instead of think. And so when we react, when we respond out of anger or aggravation or exhaustion, whatever, how often have we said, well, that's not really who I am, when we've done something we don't agree with, there's something wrong. We've heard it from celebrities who've done dumb things. They say, well, that's not really who I am. And so often when we react, when we speak out of anger, bad things happen. The beginning of strife is like the letting out of water. So stop before the quarrel breaks out. That's sometimes the hard thing, isn't it? Mama used to always say, when you say, I shouldn't say this, well then don't say it. If you have to attach that as an introduction, well, I shouldn't say this, well, then that's your key not to say it. The one who forgives an affront fosters friendship, and the one who dwells on disputes will alienate a friend. Good friends are hard to find, y'all. Think about it. If you have in your life 1 to 2 true friends, people that have been with you through thick and thin, people you can trust with anything, people who have been there for you or for your family, outside of your salvation and your family, that might be the most important thing that you can ever have. We as Christians need to learn how to first be forgiving people. Forgiveness may be the hardest thing for us to do as Christians, hardest thing for any of us to do is to forgive, but it's the most important, because only forgiveness makes relationships possible. Only forgiveness allows relationships to heal, to live, to breathe. Forgiveness is the key. And I think that's one of the reasons why it can sometimes be the hardest, because forgiveness cuts against the thing that we see so often that Proverbs caution us against, and that's pride. Because pride wants to hold on to wrongs. Pride says this, I was wronged. And sometimes, by the way, the wrong that you suffered is a legitimate and a painful wrong that you have every right to hold on to. You have every right to hold on to. If someone harms you, harms your child, harms your parents, costs you something great, you are well within your rights to hold on to that. I understand it. I've been there. We all have been. When you hold on to it like that, you really make that relationship untenable. Because any relationship you ever had that's worth holding on to is going to have times of anger with each other. It's going to have times of hurt with each other. It's going to have times of pain with each other. It's going to have times of forgiveness. The one who forgives an affront fosters friendship, but the one who dwells on disputes will alienate a friend. Evil will not depart from the house of the one who returns evil for good. The beginning of strife is like the letting out of water. So stop before the quarrel breaks out. Evil will not depart. Will not depart from the house of the one who returns evil for good. Golly, how often do we want to do that? Got to fight fire with fire, right? Got to fight fire with fire. That's not the way of Christ, y'all. Fighting fire with fire is not the way of Jesus. What did Jesus say? Someone strikes you on the cheek, turn the other to them. Forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us. We're to forgive 70 times 7. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How many times and places does Jesus caution us against returning fire for fire? How many times does Jesus tell us to forgive, even when it's hard or when it's painful? Because he understands the only way to preserve relationships, the only way to grow relationships, the only way to strengthen and sustain relationships is through forgiveness. I think that's why Proverbs comes back to this so often. Because it seems right to hold on to it. But as Proverbs tell us before, there's a way that seems right to a man, but it leads to destruction. So it may seem like the smart play. It may seem like the right thing. It may seem like the way of the world to hold on to it, to not forgive, to return fire for fire. Seems like the right thing to do. But God's word tells us that that path only leads to pain, it only leads to destruction, it only leads to hurt. So, like verse 14 says, so stop the quarrel before it breaks out. So let's watch that today, friends. Let's monitor how we feel. Let's monitor especially whenever we want to respond. Verse 28 says, even fools who keep silent are considered wise. When they close their lips, they are deemed intelligence. The old saying, better to have folks think you a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. Whenever we want to respond with anger, whenever we want to go tit for tat, whenever we want to fight fire with fire, Proverbs tells us that if we can't respond with love, if we can't respond with grace, if we can't respond with peace, we can at least respond with quiet. We can at least respond with quiet. If you can't say anything good, don't say anything at all. That's what, like the old saying goes. So if you're in the midst of a situation right now where everything in you wants to respond with fire for fire, where everything wants to return tit for tat, everything wants to strike that person who struck you, just remember that's not the way to sustain relationships. And the Bible gives us permission just to hush, just to hush. Don't say anything. Just let it pass. Let it sit. Don't respond. Because that is a valid and good reaction in the midst of anger sometimes. Anger is dangerous, y'all. It's a fire. Anger is a fire that can burn us down, that can burn down relationships, that can burn down those that we love. So today, forgive as hard as it is. And forgiveness is a journey. It's not just one action, but it's a lifestyle. So if you can forgive today, forgive. If you can't forgive, work on it. If you can't work on it, just be quiet. And that's a good step. Forgive if you can. If you can't work on it, if you can't do that, just be quiet. So good rules for us today. Proverbs is filled with such good wisdom. So hopefully tomorrow we're back at our normal place, in our normal clothes, in our normal setting. So I hope you stay warm wherever you find yourself. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow morning.